worked for me while I worked in nightclubs and things like that. So when I do these big events, I have to make sure the makeup lasts. I will put jewelry on, different things like that. So it makes a big difference. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So each prosthetic, this comes in two pieces. So we got a bottom piece for your chin, right? And then we got a bigger piece for the top, right? So that's the back, that's the front. And you're going to see a little bit of a fibers. It's almost like velvet or felt, right? That's what I did to flock it. So when I put this on, we're going to mount it directly onto the face, and it's going to be it's going to look almost a little difficult to see, right? It's going to look almost unnatural, right? So what we want to do is we want to place the prosthetic here. We want to make sure things fit, and we want to get an idea of where we're going to place it. This is very important because once we add the glue, it's not coming off. So the things I use, which I mentioned before, is Prosthetic. You can get this online. Many different places have it. Cabo Patch, the same thing. And actually this stuff is actually the thickened stuff of Prosthetic. The other things I use is sometimes spirit gum around the eyes, right? And then the other thing that people are going to cringe is I do use kids crazy glue. Just a dab, and that will hold the prosthetic in your face like really, really well. And it actually removes really, really well with just a Ben Nye remover or spirit gum remover. It works great. And the oils on your skin, as long as you moisturize and you prime your skin beforehand and it's cleansed, it'll peel off like a Band-Aid. It won't ruin your skin, it won't damage it, as long as you're not going to coat your whole face in crazy glue. The crazy glue is meant for just little dabs when the prosthetic doesn't exactly fit your face. And the fuller your face is, sometimes the better the prosthetic will look. If you're aiming for foxes or wolves or things, the more narrow your face is, the better it's going to work. And you can mold around it just by doing that stuff. So we're going to go ahead and add everything right now. I'm going to grab one of these brushes. Different brushes I have are used for different reasons. These are like my throwaway brushes. We have things that we spread around. This is what I'll be using to spread around the adhesive on the back of it. And then we have some other throwaway brushes that once we're done, we're just going to use a flat brush. Once we're done, we're just going to toss these because these are $5 brushes, right? So you get a whole big stack of them for $5. I highly recommend it, especially if you're putting all that glue on there. Makes cleanup easy and everything else. So here we go. And if you guys have questions along the way, please feel free to put them in a little chat or anything, and then someone can relay it to me because I can't see the chat right now. But if you guys have questions or comments or anything, or if you guys tried it yourself and it just doesn't work and you want some troubleshooting for your own projects, let me know. So we're gonna go ahead and open it up right now. Most of the glue will be sealed, which is a good thing, and you want to give it a good shake before you start. So we're going to start with the bigger prosthetic first. The reason why is because that's going to be the harder part. The bottom part will just align very well. So I'm just going to dip it in what I'm doing here. And I'm slowly going to paste this along the entire edges of the prosthetic. And the reason why I'm going to take my time is because this stuff takes a hot minute to kind of really stick to your face, right? There are some brands I found out that dry instantly, and then this one that I'm using, this one I actually got from North for Effects. It's actually a preference. I don't know if they make it themselves or whatnot, but what I notice is with this stuff, it takes a minute to dry, and it can always use Ben Nye like Spirit Gum or Mayron or anything else to kind of really make it stick. And it makes a big difference. I really like how it smooths on. So basically what I'm doing is you'll see the back end of the prosthetic, and I'm just smoothing it out with the adhesive. And it's going to get messy. That's okay. Make sure just where you're working at is fine. And you're going to want to, you don't want to have your costume already on. You want to be able to post that costume on last. That's why I'm wearing a tank top today, and you guys see a bit of shoulder action. So once we're all done, it's going to look nice and coated. You can kind of see it's kind of glistening. That's what we want, right? And then after we're done here, what I'm going to be doing is then I'll fill in the spots with the stronger adhesives such as the spirit gum or even a little couple dabs of crazy glue. And the only caveat is do not have the crazy glue near your eyes. It will burn. You just want it for the sides of your cheek or the sides underneath your chin, away from the nose and stuff. It's just a nice tactic I like to use to make sure the prosthetic stays on, especially if I'm going to wear it for like 12 hours, right? So here we go. So a lot of these prosthetics, you should be able to breathe on them. There's two little holes in there. You can see it's a little hard to position it. Those two little holes will help you breathe, and these are very light, so it's pretty breathable when you're doing it, right? So So I'm going to put it right here. It's going to smell like latex. I'm going to do the best I can to kind of see what I'm doing with the little video screen I have. I'm just going to kind of smooth it. You can use another brush. I would not wear gloves because the gloves are just going to stick to the adhesive, okay? Okay, so I'm feeling it stick to the cheeks really well, but I'm going to just kind of keep the nose on my face until I'm ready to go. I already can tell I'm going to need to add like some spirit gum to the sides and Cabo Patch. And Cabo Patch will kind of help even the lines out and make everything a lot better. There we go. The lines are just not even. I can even feel it. I can even see it from the little screen. And up here, it's kind of poking out. And that's just the shape of your face. That's just what's going to happen. So I'm just holding it in place just to get a nice initial grip with that Prosthetic. And then I'm going to go over with the spirit gum, maybe a little bit of crazy glue if I need it for certain areas. And then after that, we're going to smooth it out with Cabo Patch on the edges. And that's really good to do, especially if you're just going to use body paint and not any fur at all. It's really good to smooth out those edges because then when you add paint over it, no one's going to see those edges and it's going to look real. And that's the objection, or that's the kind of like the object of what you're trying to do. So when you're transforming into something else, you want to make the illusion as real as you can get. Now, if you're in a dark place like a nightclub, it's a little bit more forgiving because it's dark. So a lot of people won't notice the details. So the idea is you want to be able to sell the illusion as best as you can, okay? All right, so I think it's sticking pretty well. I feel it kind of coming off on the edges, and we got to fix the top. So right now I'm going to use some spirit gum on the top here. You can see these edges right here. They are not going to be working. You see how they're kind of poking out here? We need those flat. If we don't have those flat, it's gonna ruin the illusion. So I'm going to do the best I can to kind of really smoosh it down with spirit gum. And what you're going to notice is it might get hot or it might feel like it's burning a little bit. That's why you want to use a little bit at a time. Because if it reacts really horribly with the Prosthetic, especially anything near your eyes, you just want to be careful. There has been times where I used the wrong kind of adhesive and the Prosthetic melted to my face and it was quite horrifying. If you've ever heard me scream on stream, you know I scream pretty loud. So imagine, you know, a big honking guy screaming trying to get a melted Prosthetic off their face. So, I mean, it's hilarious now, but then it's not very funny. So here you go. It looks like it's molding really well from the tiny picture I can see. I'm kind of doing it by feeling. It actually did a really good job adhering to the face. I think what we got to do is just do the cheeks. Ooh. And even with spirit gum, you want to be careful not to have it too close to your eyes. All right. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and use some of the crazy glue to get some of the other spots. You can see like edges here, how it's kind of peeling. We don't want that. And you want the Prosthetic to really sit on your face. All right. It looks like we're doing pretty good. And we're going to smooth out these really horrible edges with some Cabo Patch. So other things that you want to learn about prosthetics is that they only have a couple uses, right? If you're really good with them, you can get probably 2 or 3 uses. Me, since I'm so rough with the makeup application, I get maybe 1 or 2. Okay. So I won't be able to fix these edges up here until probably later. So probably after stream, I'm going to fix these edges near my eyes. I'll probably take a little pair of scissors or something or tweezers to get it out. So I'm going to do that. So right now, this is just probably the most boring part. I'm just trying to get the Prosthetic to stick to my face. Make sure it stays there to slip. Good. So right now, You want to test it with your jaw. Move it, right? We want to make sure it doesn't fall off. And you can worry about the details at the end once you kind of post the whole prosthetic on there. So now this is the other piece, right? This is just the chin. So the reason why you want to do this last is because you want to make sure you line it up, right? Let's see. You could, in theory, make a mold. Yeah, you could make a mold. Like if you want to do it of your own face, you can make a mold and then kind of do a prosthetic that way. I would do. What would I do? I'd probably use something almost like paper mache and just make a paper mache of my face and then just kind of use clay or even foil. You can use foil and then use the back end of a spoon to smooth it out. When I mean smooth it out is you can make kind of sculptures with it and then add a very fine clay on top. It'll be a little heavier, but you can get the same kind of stuff. And actually a lot of people who make amusement park rides and stuff like that will make sculptures and special prosthetics out of foil and clay. But you can start with paper mache, and then you can use cardboard or foil, like I mentioned, and shape it how you want to make a face. And then you can put that, since it's molded to your face, right on top, right? And you can just use partial prosthetic. You don't have to do your entire face. You can do just partials and make it that way, and it'll do almost the same amount of job. It'll do very well. So right now we got the back end. We're gonna go ahead and get all that sticky stuff on there. And go ahead and be liberal with it, because if you want this stuff to last for a long time, such as myself, if I'm going to be wearing this until I may be going downtown in full getup and full gear, I may have to make sure this lasts for, I don't know, 12 hours, because I'm going to be out late at night with all the sweating. So you want to make sure you really laboriously put it on there, right? All right, let's see if I know what I'm doing. Okay. Let's smooth it out to my chin. Make sure it's straight. And it's okay if you don't get it on straight. There's been plenty of times where I put on a prosthetic and it doesn't stay. Like right now, that's really crooked, so we're going to fix that. Okay, that's pretty good. So the bottom chin is sometimes can be easy for some and harder for others, because if you notice, it's going to peel off. We need that to stay. So I kind of smooth it out as best I can, and I try to hold it. And then I'm going to use the same kind of glue that we did. We did Ben Nye. For this one, I'm actually going to use the crazy glue because it's underneath the chin, because I want to make sure this stuff really sticks to me and not come off. And that way it'll mold to your face. And as you see it, like I can move my mouth and it looks like the prosthetic, right? It looks like the extension of myself. So that's exactly what we want to do. All right, it just feels slightly funny, but I think we're good. So the best way you can test to make sure it's going to stay on, because you're going to feel it fall off, is to wiggle your chin, your mouth. Good. So it looks like we did a pretty good job just from the video. And mind you, you probably can see a much larger screen than I can. My screen is probably like this big. So I'm using that to kind of apply. I'll be able to see all the details probably a little bit later when I finish this up and post pictures. So. All right, it feels like it's pretty good. The edges I can tell are really rough. And we're going to use Cabo Patch on all of that to smooth it out. Okay, and then we're going to add some white paint to cover it up. The reason why you still want to face paint yourself when you're adding prosthetics is you want the illusion to work. So when we're going to add fur on top of it, the white on your skin and the white fur is going to go good. The other thing I want to let you guys know about prosthetics is when you do prosthetics of any kind, pick one color. Don't be ambitious. Don't do red, blue, green, yellow. Black is probably the easiest one to do, followed by very dark gray or white. If you do those single colors and you get really masterful at them, then you can do other colors like red or blue.
And then when you're really good, then you can do combination or gradients of colors. And let me tell you, with gradients of colors, or if you do feathers or anything like that, like for a bird, is very difficult to get the illusion that it's real. With these kind of things, with animals like tigers, lions, especially wolves, they're really easy because it's easy to recognize them. So, all right. It looks like we're doing pretty good here. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the cowboy hatch. I'm gonna smooth everything out, then we're gonna paint, and then we're gonna add fur, and then we'll be all set. So the type of makeup I use is the best brand of makeup that I actually use. This is pretty. It's you know that it's messy because I use it a lot, but it's called Pro Air makeup. So Pro Air, you actually use it with an airbrush gun, but you can use it straight on, right? I actually will mix it with lotion and a couple other makeups to make it really stick. This stuff will literally stain your skin this color. So you can do fake temporary tattoos with this stuff. You can pour your drink on it. You can try to scrub it off and it will stay. I use this stuff to paint scales, um, complicated tattoo designs, things like that. So when you use Pro Air makeup like this, it's going to work really well. Now, the only side, it's really expensive. It's like $16 to $30 for a little bottle like this. And to do a full body paint, I would need two of these bottles. So it cost me almost $100 to do head to toe body paint. If I'm gonna paint myself everywhere in between, my booty cheeks, my feet, everything, it would literally take two bottles of this and an airbrush gun to make it work really well. And let me tell you, it does work very well, and it's water resistant, smudge proof, and it's quick dry. So you can apply this with a sponge as long as you mix it with like a cream makeup, and it'll work really well because what it will do is how it sets, it won't crack. And that's one of the biggest things with a lot of cream makeups you get at the Halloween store is it cracks and it's not very good. And you don't want it to be cracking when you have fur on top of it. So we're going to use Cabo Patch first. And what we're going to do is we're going to paint the inches. So I'm going to use another cheap brush like I mentioned. So you can get like a whole big bag of brushes for $5, right? And then you use your really good brushes like I either have them black or things like this. So let me see if I can show you. Expensive brushes would look like this, right? So you can tell just by the style how it is. And then if you want powder brushes, I just buy cheap ones too. And what's really nice is I color code them. So these are actually really cheap brushes, but I like them because they're bright. I'm able to tell the difference between what I'm using because sometimes when you're rushing or if you have a project you're doing on someone else, it can take a long time to do. So and you might mess up. You might pick up the wrong brush. So what I'm going to do is, ooh, this brush is actually too soft. All right, let me get a little bit of a tougher brush. Or cleans up with soap and water. That is correct, but you're gonna need a lot of soap and water. Okay, I guess we're gonna use an expensive brush for this one. Um, I use like Seltz Blue because the selenium sulfide seems to pull it off, and then conditioner. So if you get any in it in your hair, you can use. Ooh, this is gonna be tough staring at a little screen. I'm gonna have to kind of feel around. I use baby wipes and wake up remover. Does that really work? To be honest, every time I use it, it doesn't come off. But then again, I take on the makeup like crazy because I want to make sure I hide everything. And what's really nice about Kevo Patch is what I didn't know when I was first using it is it clean it goes on clear. So like when it dries, you can't see it. Ooh, I'm having a tough time trying to flatten this out with that little image screen. There we go. Now I can really see what I'm doing. Ooh, it's really wrinkled. Now, I won't be able to see everything you guys have in the chats. I can only see like partial messages. But But if you have any other questions or anything like that, you know, someone could relay it to me if I have to answer it on stream. I'd be happy to. So these little imperfections here, as you can see, it looks really, really bad. I'm going to be covering up that with fur, so I'm not too worried that it's wrinkled like that, okay? And if you see here, oh my God, here, right? The other side, okay, it's mirrored. You can tell that it doesn't look very good. It's kind of split here, right? So when we do that, when I'm going to cover it up with makeup, I may cut that, right? So cabbage goes on just nice and smooth. I'm having a hard time. It takes time. So each prosthetic application probably takes me at least an hour to do, and then adding all the fur and everything else probably takes another hour. So depending on how much time we have, maybe we'll hopefully I'll try to get to the end so you guys can see the completed thing. Oh yeah, look at here. So you'll see it here, right? You'll see these edges kind of bubble up. So when you add fur or kebble patch first and then you add the fur to here, you're going to hide those lines, right? So I'm going to snip fur and place it right along here, right? Now, a lot of people will use like different things to cover up this. They'll add furry ears, things like that. I actually will do it piece by piece. So once I'm just about done here, I will show you what I do. To cover this up. And everybody does it different. Just gonna feel. Okay. The edges are pretty rough. Very rough, actually. But I think this will be okay because what we're gonna do is we're gonna apply the fur, right? So first thing we're gonna do is the makeup, then we're gonna do the fur. So here we go. So like I mentioned before, we're gonna do white makeup. I'm gonna mix the Pro Air paint with a cream makeup, right? So that's what that looks like. You can tell it's well used. You don't have to use very much. And then I'm just going to use a non-smudge cream makeup. And then I have cheap makeup sponges. These ones you can get at a makeup store. I think during the Halloween places they sell them. You don't need to buy expensive ones. The expensive ones are mostly used if you're going to do eyeshadow or other things like that. This is perfect for what we're doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to add this. We're going to cover up here around the eyes, right? We're going to do the neck, and we're also going to do the ears. Now, we're going to hide the ears with the wig we're doing. Otherwise, I would actually use fur, or I would use like gizmos or things like that to hide the ear. I'd actually place the prop on top of the ear so you can't see it. So the ears you would see is up here or onto the side, or I use the ears as part of the prop. So it just depends on exactly what we're doing. So here we go. I'm going to grab a palette. You don't need a fancy palette either of any kind. I just use whatever I have on hand. It could be cardboard. It could be anything with a flat surface that you don't mind ruining, right? So this one I'm going to do just a piece of cardstock. So I'm just using old piece of cardstock with something on top of it. And we're going to add just some basic cream makeup. You guys can't see what I'm doing, but I'm just squeezing a crap load of that out. It's gonna look right on a smooth palette, right? So using a plastic dish right on top of it, right? And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna mix a little bit of Pro Air with it, and then we're gonna mix it with our sponge. And with Pro Air, you gotta make sure if it's hybrid, make sure you shake it and then put it right on. Okay, now I can see the whole chat, everybody, so. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just mixing it really well. It's gonna look like cottage cheese. That's okay. I'm just gonna mix it as best I can. Would anti-dandruff shampoo work as a body wash solution for those pain? Yeah. So like I mentioned before, selenium sulfide specifically. So if you get Selsun Blue or our off-brand, the selenium sulfide is actually really good for acne. So you can use it as a temporary body wash. I would get the one that moisturizes because it's going to dry out the hell out of your skin, but it makes a big difference to get it all out. I've never used baby wipes. I think I've used makeup remover wipes. They just didn't work as good as when I just showered and got it off. So I'm trying to pull up the makeup right now. I'm trying to make it nice and smooth. Um, and sometimes with the makeup, you can add lotion or polysorbate 80 to kind of emulsify the cream and anything else you're using. Okay, so I'm just going to start to see how it looks. Perfect. So if you see it comes on nice and thick. So one of the best things about if you're using white or black or dark gray, it's going to go on there nice and thick. And that's what you want. Because ideally you're going to want to, and you want to do the strokes the same way, right? As best you can, or just dabbing. Because if you put it on, if you don't put it on thick enough and you're just doing different strokes in different places, so what you're going to do is I'm going to show you an example. If I do this and then this, do you see how like you can tell which way everything's been stroked? You want to kind of do it in the same way. And the reason why is it looks nice and even. And this is not going to cake up the same way, I can already tell. But since we're using fur on top of this, I'm not too worried about the imperfections we're doing. Depends if the streamer wants to preserve it. Well, the main strings will work, right? I haven't touched prosthetics yet, and I really want to. I mean, Hubble, you should try them. Like, the prosthetics really take face painting and everything else to a new level. But I do like what I see. You do really well with the white makeup, Hubble. And we're going to do the bottom. I'm going to do the entire neck because what I'm going to be using is a skin-tight suit. Sounds like a space suit with armor. So we want to make sure we carry the illusion all the way down here. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be adding fur here. I'm going to give myself a neck beard like I'm a, you know. If you guys touched prosthetics before, feel free to mention it in the chat that we have here. I'm really curious of what other you guys have been working on. I think I see someone in the chat who does makeup all the time. My favorite is when he does the pie videos. He does they do these extraordinary makeups that are like beyond what I could ever do. And then when I see him like throw the pie at his own makeup, I kind of cry a little bit. It's so funny. He does it all the time. So every time he does makeup, he throws a pie. Okay, and we're not going to forget the eyes because we're going to do the eyes white too. We're going to make it all just one palette. And then when I'm probably done with stream, I'll add in all the extra details, which will take me a lot longer. And I need a really good close-up to see what I'm doing. Since I don't have my mirror in front of me and I'm using a very tiny screen, that's what I'm doing. So if you notice here, you see that line? That's the line of the prosthetic. That's something you want to hide. Since I'm adding fur, I'm not too worried. But ideally, you see how I'm putting makeup on and it's not coating. That's why you want really good amounts of Cabo Patch to flatten out those lines to your skin. I did an okay job. Since we're adding fur, like I mentioned, on top of it, it won't be that bad. And when I add fur, I actually just take it piece by piece. Actually cut a piece of fake fur, and I'll put it right on there. So add a little glue, add a patch of fake fur, add a little glue, patch of fake fur. So I'm trying to rush just a little bit to make sure we have time so I can show you everything. And the other thing you want to do is don't make the colors flat. And what I'm talking about is once you're done with this, if you're just going to do face paint, add shadows, add midtones, add highlights between your eyes, right? Like if you have bright green eyes or blue, or like say, maybe maybe it's violet, or you have two different color eyes, like highlight those with a good highlight. I use gold flaking a lot. I want to make my own prosthetics. I do blender sculpts and want to translate that in real life. That's really cool. Star Trek Discovery extensively used 3D printed molds from 3D models for making silicone prosthetics and master many characters. That's really cool. I know that like when you're on set doing stuff, you have to they'll print out the same prosthetic and they'll print out like 20 of them, right? And that could be just for that one day. I don't know. But they print out the same prosthetic for one cast member, a whole bunch of them, and then they're sitting in that chair, and you have several makeup artists working on them like around the clock. And what I mean around the clock, probably several hours. It just depends on what it is. I don't know how to shape my face with makeup. So with this, you really don't have to shape your face. I do it by feeling. So these prosthetics are like one that fits all. So like I said, if your face is very full, it may fit the prosthetic better, right? If you have a very round face, if you have a very angled or Dorito face, it may be harder to fit some prosthetics than others. And the best way you can do that is you can trim it, right? You can trim the prosthetic, or you can use glue in certain spots like I did in order to make the prosthetic fit really well. So if we just look at this, I forgot everything's mirrored backwards. If you just look like this, right, you can see that it looks pretty darn good, right, in terms of shape. Whatever you want to use for a shape. But like my face is pretty filled out, it's pretty round. So in order to accentuate my jaw, I would just shape out the prosthetic this way, or I'd trim it. Now, if you don't know how to use makeup for your face and you're thinking about contouring and stuff like that, I would look at videos to learn how to contour your face, to learn how to midtones and things like that. I would start with eyeshadows because you need several different colors to pull off a really good eyeshadow palette, right? I am not good at that stuff. I learned it. It's hard to do it. It just makes it's just much different than adding a prosthetic, right? And when you do prosthetics, start with one color like I mentioned before and go from there. Ooh, this is gonna be tough. Oh yeah, this is not gonna look good. So, one thing you're gonna notice is this prosthetic is actually sitting above my eyelid. So what I'm gonna have to do is after the stream, I'm going to have to take a special adhesive, like it's a very small brush, and I'm actually gonna stick it underneath the prosthetic and then push the prosthetic down so I can even it out, right? So like right now, if I push it down, it looks a little better, but what I might do is use a powder makeup to cover things up. And the other thing you can do for your eyebrows when you start is just take a glue stick and just glue those eyebrows down, and then that way you can get the makeup on there a lot better. Oh yeah, so there's a lot of work to be done around the eyes. So after I'm done here doing the panel, I'll post some pictures on X and on Blue Sky so you can see the finished thing, because it looks like I think I only have here for an hour. Is that correct? I heard for the prosthetics in the Penguin in the recent Batman film and spin-off series took around 7 hours to apply. That's insane. I think I did Quetzalcoatl, like full body, a serpent one, like head to toe. I was basically not wearing clothes, and I had to be like in a nightclub, completely naked, and I had to airbrush myself down head to toe with like fishnets to give the illusion of scales, and then I hand paint each scale, like some of them with a mica paint to kind of give it like an iridescent glow, and like everything was painted, and then it felt really weird, and then once I was done I had to put everything back on, but that took about 5 hours. That was like the longest one I've ever done. So right now, I mean, this is only an hour and we have to fix the eyes. I have to add the fur, and what I might do is for the last bit of it here, I may do the fur just to show you how it's applied. All right, I'm almost done. I just need to get a good base coat because once you put the fur on, you won't be able to really add more paint. The other thing with body paint is you can't see your back, so makes it you have to be very cognizant of what you're doing. So sometimes I would hide things below my lower back if I can't reach things, right? So when I do Anubis, oftentimes when I'm wearing that hood, I'm usually covered up, right? Where you can't see my imperfections and things like that. I'll use other makeups. And the other thing is when you're doing makeup, let's say you know that the skin tight suit's going to come up to here. You want to go a little bit below the belt. You don't need to put fur down here, of course, if you don't want to. But the idea is you're selling the illusion that you're really the creature. So doing a little bit of extra like palette work makes a big difference. And then when you're all done adding the fur and all that, you can add the extra details like fixing the eyes. Like these eyes look awful. You want to make sure the prosthetic really sticks to your face, the fur's around it, and then you're good to go. Sometimes you can do everything possible and it won't work with these bigger prosthetics. So what I do is I'll actually just add the fur along the eyes, just making sure I don't get any of the adhesive near my eyelashes, and it works out just fine. So I'm actually going to go all the way down to my chest here. And the other thing you might want to think about, and I forgot to mention this, is when you open your mouth, people are going to see your lips underneath. So it sometimes pays to coat that black or add a little red, or it depends. Like since this lion's gums are gray, I may do gray on the inside of the mouth, right? So you don't want that to be showing, even if you're a nightclub, that ruins the illusion. So you might want to paint that dark or dark red or purple. And what that does, it gives the illusion that you're really this creature that you're doing, right? The only difference would be is if you have a prosthetic going out to here. I know I've seen some really huge ones. And those huge ones, they can be about maybe $200 or $300 just for a base. But if you can get them to stick out here, you won't need to do anything on the inside of your mouth because it's so far out. But I know these prosthetics really close to your face, you're gonna have to paint the inside to kind of help the illusion. The other thing you can do with prosthetics, and it's only if you want to draw attention to it, because sometimes if you did your prosthetic, you painted it really bad, you want to distract people with everything else you're wearing so they don't see how bad the prosthetic is. That's if you do it. Cool. So we have an hour less. We might be able to do a lot more, which is good. I thought this panel was only an hour. That's why I was rushing. So that's good. We have another hour with this. Okay. So the other thing we're going to use is probably like a powder. Powder makeup is really good, and the reason why, so I'm just using a plain white powder. It can be nice to kind of fill in the spots you didn't do really well. That's if it works really well. Let's use this brush. This is good. Try this big brush again. Try a different kind of brush. Sometimes the powder brushes work really good with like something flat. So this is another kind of brush. You can use it for eyeshadow, other things like that. That's if it works. And I'm actually having a hard time with this stuff. All right. So let's see if we can just kind of pump the makeup on the eyes and we can fix the rest later. The other thing you can do, depending on your character, is you can hide your eyes too. And the one way to do that is I've done it before when I got really lazy. Like if you guys seen the werewolf makeup, I actually used the hair to cover it. You can also use crazy glasses, right? So these glasses will hide the imperfections around your eyes and add to the illusion. You can do whatever you need to do to kind of sell it. And sometimes things don't work. Sometimes there are people who are really experienced and they just don't, they can't execute something really well. And I've definitely missed my mark a couple times. There's been a couple times where I went to a furry convention and I messed up my execution so bad, so I just changed the animals completely. Like there's one where I was supposed to do like a fox kind of character and it just didn't work out, so I scrapped it, redid everything, and did a bunny. I had big ears and everything ready for that, so I do notice. So I can feel this prosthetic is not sticking on the top here. So let's see if we can use a little bit of. So I'm using spirit gum, and you want to be just very careful when it's close to your eyes like that. So, oh, it does not want to stick. Okay, I'll have to fix that. So I'm looking and it looks like someone are talking about with darker characters don't want to accidentally blackface. So here's the thing with that, Hubble. Um, for instance, I do Anubis, right? No one's gonna. I don't think I've ever had a complaint of someone saying anything when I did Anubis. And Anubis is traditionally they're a black jackal, right? So if you're wearing a black jackal prosthetic and you're doing the gold and you're doing the character, no one's gonna accuse you of anything horrible, right? I think I had one, and they told me maybe I should have thought about doing a different color, and it's just something that you're gonna be pitted with that if you do this professionally. Like for instance, when I did Quetzalcoatl, right, which is everybody know they're from um they're a god from a different culture, right? So when you do deities or things like that, you can risk, someone pointing out that you're sensationalizing something from their culture, right? Which is not your goal. Your goal is not to sensationalize the character at all. Your goal is that you're doing art, right? So you want to make sure you stay sensitive. You always want to be culturally sensitive. But if you're doing Anubis or you're doing something else, um, generally no one's gonna think bad of it. So for instance, you could be doing Dragon Ball Z. You could be doing Beerus, which he's purple, right? People might not like that you're painting your face purple. So you just have to be culturally sensitive and you know what you can do and what's appropriate. I mean, use common sense. I would not do anything that would, offend anybody when I'm putting on makeup. Is fear of taking the legacy of our current prime minister. Oh, I see someone else painted a face painted on me of Hubble, and someone made that joke because. Oh, I see. I see. So you had personal experience of. Well, yeah, you know what? Just take it with a grain of salt. There's always going to be people out there that will say something about your art, right? So there's a saying that you can let the first arrow hit, but the rest of them you should not worry. You should never let it bother you. All right, I'm almost done applying all this paint. I just have to make sure it's even, and I can't really see all the little details of what I'm doing just from this little picture on the screen. So please excuse me. I'm doing the best I can here. Okay, so you see all these imperfections on this side. You see where the mask is. We're going to be adding fur to that, and that's what's going to hide all these little scrunched up pieces, right? Okay, still not dark enough on that one side, so let's try my best. It's a donkey, not a human. Exactly, exactly. I I love a lot of the stuff you do. What was my favorite one? I don't know. I think I liked all the ones that you've done. And the people who are here right now, I, I think wait, Mask Gargoyle, you're the one that would pie yourself in the face after you're done with your project, right? There were so many of them that were so good. What was it? There's one that was specifically my favorite. I think was it like a Minotaur one that you've done? I can't remember. But there was one I liked so much and it was so real and so well executed. Actually, all the ones you do are like extraordinary. Bison, that's what it was. It was the bison was my favorite one. That was probably my favorite, one of my most favorite ones that you've ever done. I was so impressed by it. It was really inspiring. Like I wish I could aspire to that level. So it looks so good. Okay. Good. That looks pretty good, except for the imperfections. Trying to see on the side of the face. Okay. We're almost there, you guys. Thanks for bearing with me. This is the longest part, is to make to make it all even, right? Because we see my eyebrow coming through. Reason I want to cover these up, and I'll tell you why, because if I'm going to put fur on top of it, I don't want to rip my eyebrows out afterwards. So that's the only thing you got to be prepared for. And here's the other thing: to do full body paint, you got to make sure you shave, unless you can incorporate it in part of your makeup. You'll want to shave. When I do full body paint, I will actually nair my entire body for it, and I'll use a really good sugar scrub, because I don't want to pull any hair out when I scrub all this stuff off. So it works better just on smooth skin. Unless you incorporate like a beard or something to your project. That's why I'm always like, I mean, I don't really have a lot of body hair or anything anyway, but that's what you're gonna have to do. I heard Bison thought a Street Fighter character for a moment. Okay. I don't really like how it's sitting on the bottom. We're gonna fix it. Okay, so all right, I think I'm good to add the fur. So the places you want to start is right next to the prosthetic. So you'll see these edges are so imperfect, but we're gonna add fur on top. It makes a big difference, right? So let me go and coat my whole face in powder first, right? Actually, it's a setting powder that I should be using. Let's see, that's a remover. That is. Okay, ideally you want to use a setting powder, right? So setting powder kind of sets the makeup so it's gonna draw cake or mess up. It's not illegal to write a TF story while transformed yet. Wouldn't that be fun? Doing a Street Fighter character as one of the creatures. So as we can see, the color is coming pretty good. Ooh, a Bloody Roar crossover. You know, I think I played that game. Did that game come out like a long time ago? Long, long time ago. Okay, yeah, I bet if they were to reintroduce that game now, it'd be hella popular. All right, come on, powder makeup. Do your thing. Do your thing. So the other thing you can use, let's see if it works. Oh, perfect. Okay, so the other thing you can use is like just basically a hairspray, right? So you notice when I added the hairspray on top of the powder, you see how it kind of really coats it really well? Okay. So the eyes are still a problem, but we can fix that with fur. Hopefully when I add the fur on the sides here, it'll actually kind of create the illusion, right? It'll look really good. Unfortunately, it really is the easiest to have context for this. Use baby powder to set as base paint. It's not the best, but it works. Yeah. Use a makeup setting powder. It makes a big difference. And then for certain costumes, you can use contact lenses, right, to give the effect that kind of enhances effect. I'm scared of adding contacts, so I will do whatever I can to not use them. So my eyes are really, really light blue. So if I'm in the daylight with an event, I will literally enhance my blue eyes using makeup and highlights to get around using contacts. Or I will use, like if I did such a horrible job, like on these eyes right here, if I can't even them, I will use glasses, right? I will put these on and to hide the fact that I didn't do a great job with the eyes, right? So this looks pretty good. Now we're going to hide all these little imperfections. So we're going to go ahead and move things to the side here. I'm going to go ahead and use the Prosthetic as well, a little bit of the Cabo Patch to put the fur on, okay? Your face is going to get really warm, really hot, really quick. So if you're going to do this full body, I would suggest making a skin suit and you just adding adhesive and flocking fur on top of that, or wearing a fursuit, like whatever you need to do. Don't full body paint yourself with fur unless you're ready to be really warm. If you're going to do that, like a waist up kind of thing, and you really have all the time to do that, make sure you leave your underarms open. You leave the back of your knees open. You leave anywhere where you don't need to be showing things. You know, let that breathe, because you can overheat really easily and it can cause a problem, right? So the fur I'm going to be using is just the same match. So looks pretty good, right? Looks like it'll match the fur color really well. The mane is actually going to be a very tawny color if you see this, right? So this just looks like a pile of fur, but it's a specialized wig that I teased to kind of make it look like a lion's mane, right? The reason why wigs are sometimes better than, you know, doing a fur thing with ears is you don't have to worry about the crease, right? The crease between the makeup and the fur. If you just do the whole thing fur and add this will kind of add it character, right? So you have something that's tawny color, but when you put it on, it kind of gives that look, right? So if you're really a warrior, your hair is not going to be perfectly white, even if you're a white lion, right? You're going to add tawny colors, dirt, things like that to make it look hyper real. So we're going to just be adding the white fur, and then you can add dirt, tawny paint, anything you want to do to brighten it up things or to make it look really real and the same. So it's going to be very white. The mane's going to be like an off-white, and we're going to try to color match that the best we can using airbrush paint and things like that. I don't know if we'll have enough time to get that far, but we're going to start adding the fur. The fur can probably take the longest too. We're not going to add anything to the prosthetic because if you look really closely, it's already furred, right? So we're going to kind of pull the fur out this way, and it kind of give an illusion that the fur is very tight. Sorry about that, you guys. Let's go ahead and see what I can do here. And share the chat window. Okay, perfect. Let me see here. Okay, it looks like we're ready to add the fur. I'm going to just use a pair of scissors. Use any fur you want. You could even use flocking fur, which is these fine nylon fibers. The only problem with that is they're very tiny. You can breathe those in, so you kind of need to wear a mask when you work with those. This is not so bad. This is probably the length I want to use. I may want longer length, like if I want to do a little bit of chin hair or something, you know, to give that effect. But ideally, this is fine. So this is going to be probably the stickiest part you're going to ever do. It's going to get everywhere, and it's going to be quite it's going to be quite entertaining. So we're going to just do it piece by piece. I'm going to just cut just a few pieces at a time, and then we're going to work with those. They're going to get really stuck to your fingers. So if at possible, like you can use tweezers, whatever you want. I just use my fingers. It just makes it easier. So, and then use the same kind of adhesive brush you were using for your prostate or anything application. You're adding the prosthetic just to save brushes, however you want. So what I'm doing is I'm just cutting a few pieces right now. The other way you can do this is, you see how a lot of it has a back? You can just keep it on here and apply the fur. The problem is that it won't look as real. So I'm going to show you an example of what I mean. So let's say I decide to be really lazy, and I'm, instead of doing it fur by fur, I'm going to add it piece by piece. So if you notice, when I add it piece by piece, you can see the lines of that fur, right? So we probably could do it that way if we wanted. However, it's gonna know, like, people are gonna, if they look closely, they're gonna know it's not real. And when you add bits of fur, which is, it's messy, it takes a long time, but if you add a little bit of fur at a time, it looks a little bit more real, right? Or if we do some on the top here, you know, if we do this, which is really hard to see compared to something like this, it just depends on what you're going for. You can do either. And actually, depending on what you're doing, you can do either. But for little bits and pieces, like for the corners, you need to do bit by bit. It'll actually look better in the long run. And then if you are running out of time, or you need to do something else, you can actually add patches of fur. You just need to make sure it's nice and flat. So we're going to do a couple applications of the fur. And then I think that's, I'm not sure if that's all the time we'll have, but we'll try to do that because I want to show it to you what it looks like with the wig. So I'm going to add a little bit of the fur, and then I'll probably wrap up after the panel here, so you guys can, and I'll send out pictures so you guys can see. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get the Prosthetic, the same stuff I showed you earlier. You can use Cable Patch too if you want. I don't have very much of the Cable Patch. I like to save that. So I'm going to use just the Prosthetic. And let's see, where do we want to start? Why don't we do the top of the head? And you know what? I think there's a little bit of fur on it already. Sure, it's nice and moist because you're going to want a nice, good application of it. And it's going to get messy. And what's really nice is once you have the fur on there, you can brush it any way you like. It's going to be really hard to see. So I'm going to see if I can do the best I can to show you guys what I'm doing. And do the best you can to make the fur face in the same direction. It's really important because if you have fur pieces facing downwards when the rest are up, people are going to know it's not real. So like this part right here, like if I turn it upside down, it doesn't look as well. So if you see the application, it looks nice and flat. And then as you go, you can add more. And so then if you feel like doing larger pieces, like I mentioned, if you can get away with it, you can do so, right? You can add the fur to the top of your head, right? That way the lines look different. I'd actually probably do it upside down. So, there we go. It actually makes it a little better. So you can do fur like that, right? If you're going to use patches of fur, but just know that people can see the lines, right? So that's why I do it bit by bit. But it's just up to you and what your goals are for the project. If you're doing this for someone else, like if you're getting paid to do it, you're going to want to go all the way, because all it takes is just one really bad botched job that you were hired for, and then people will just talk about it. You know, even if you've done hundreds of things of great work, if you fail, at least in the art world, at least in my work, you may not get the bigger gigs anymore. And I've done big circuit parties, or I've done like 16 or more people, and it makes a big difference. And do the best you can. What you can do is you can always go over it later and smooth it out. What I'll probably do is I'll take some tweezers once I wash my hands. I got the whole face covered, And when you do that, it actually makes a big difference. Okay. Probably the funniest example I've ever done where it didn't come out quite as planned. Um, it was a big circuit party. It was supposed to be Star Wars themed, and people wanted Trandashans, which are like these lizard people. They wanted rebel forces, aliens, all sorts of things. And I had to apply the makeup, and I only had about 2 hours to do 16 people, and that's not enough. So imagine when I had to tell people, like, I need everyone early, I need everybody here. And one of the worst parts is I didn't script entirely. It's just that I got my books mixed up. And so one person was supposed to be just in a rebel outfit, dancing on stage, right? They had to be dancing in this big kind of caged area. It was very, very artistic, very unique. And I did them up as a Trandashan. So they were a big old lizard person, and they went and they danced as a lizard person right in that box. And actually, even though I messed up, like I really fucked up, it actually, excuse me, I really messed up. It actually turned out to be a mistake that was okay because it actually came out a lot better. But ideally, you don't want to make mistakes um, when you're working for a big corporation or a big circuit kind of party. But it's probably the funniest mistake ever made because you saw this alien lizard person go dancing in a cage. It is actually he kind of turned out to be the life of the party. So the lighting is really ruining what I'm trying to show you guys what I'm doing. But as you do it, as you layer up the fur, it will be layered, right? So as you're doing it, it's going to be layered, more floofed. Ideally, it's going to be this thick, right? So as you're doing the fur, it's going to be this thick, right? Nicely done. Um, and it's going to look really good. And the idea is you're going to be adding fur down here. Even though this is coated with the fur, you're going to add it a little bit down here just to kind of show a gradient. And you can do that very different ways. So, and then these bigger patch of fur that I'm holding here, you do that on top of everything else that you're doing, right? So that's the kind of like level that you want to get to when you're all done applying the makeup. And then you can do the smaller things like between the eyes here, you can add the fur. And it's okay that your eyes are not going to show. The more monstrous you look, the better it's going to be, right? All right. I'm going to add a few more layers and I think we're good to go. Um, does anybody else have any questions or anything that they might have for me? Because as I close this out, I'm going to show you guys the big old head thing, and then we'll kind of wrap things up here. So I'm going to add a little bit on this side, and then as this panel ends, I'm going to go ahead and finish up and do the final bit of touches. Ooh. I'm trying to plan out my face paint for the first time, and I'm having a hard time trying to fit the proportions of a wide head of a Wolverine on a tall face of a human. To give that illusion where the forehead's a lot wider, you can actually just make the illusion with the fur. So I would actually use fur to your advantage. So you can do just face painting here, even if a prosthetic or if you're not using one, and then on the edges, add a little bit of fur. Tease your hair up, right, to give that kind of Wolverine look, right? When you do that, it'll actually make your face look more like a Dorito, right? So you want it, I would basically just do an illusion, right? And that's how it would work. Yes, exactly. Dorito TF, exactly. Ooh, wrong way. Ooh, it's gonna be messy. Okay. So as you see here, we got the little bit of the layers, we got a medium layer on this side, and then we got the top layer. So these are just examples I've been showing you across the forehead. And that's the you kind of want to start here, and then you're going to add more and more to make a nice gradient so you look like the lion that you want, or you look like the dog, right? Sorry, I'm having trouble visualizing it. So if we were to pull up the idea of a Wolverine right now, so let's say if we were to do that right now, in order to create an illusion like that. Let me see here. Well, now it's just give me the guy Wolverine. Okay. I mean, it doesn't really have like a Wolverine doesn't really have a wide face. I mean, a Wolverine doesn't really have a wide face, but you can do the mutton chops just like in the movie for the X-Men, right? So if you're going to do that, I would suggest just doing it just like that. Just do a little yeah, you'll get pictures of the X-Men, but if you're talking about like the animal Wolverine, you can still kind of Dorito the face. Like the Wolverine from X-Men is like an actually really good like creative example of a Wolverine, right? They did a really good job. So I would copy that look when you're doing the animal and the prosthetic to kind of give the idea of a Wolverine. You don't even have to add fur to the prosthetic. You can just dance around it. And what's nice is most Wolverines are darker in color. So darker color prosthetic work works really well with a little bit of fur and then darkness, right? Like you don't need to do very much, so it's really nice. So, all right, you guys. Well, I'm just about done here. So if you guys have any other questions, please let me know. I'm gonna go finish up after the stream here because I need high level detail, a really big screen so I can see what I'm doing. But this is about as much as I can do safely without messing anything else up. But as you can see, what we talked about is we talked about the base of prosthetic, right? The one thing we did is if you're going to paint your prosthetic, use acrylic paints. Test a small area first. Make sure your prosthetic doesn't melt. I'm using a hot foam latex prosthetic. It's softer. It's a little bit more expensive. You can either mold and make your own by looking online, or you can purchase them. One of the places that I talked about was North Fur. They have extraordinary base prosthetics of every different kind of animal you can think of. Of course. I'll be happy to post the finished look once I'm done. It's probably going to take me another hour of work to really get what I want, and I'll show you what it looks like with the mane and everything else. So yeah, yeah. So if we were here in the same room, we can do it start to finish, because I can look at a mirror. But remember, like you can get prosthetics from North Fur, right? They I bought this prosthetic from them, right? And I painted it myself and I flocked it. You can get other prosthetics from other places too. Some monster places will have them, like in England and the UK. You can look at some of those places too. Just depends on what you're looking for. Some people do costumes. Like I said, if you're going to paint it yourself, make sure you use acrylic. Make sure you test a small thing before it doesn't melt. The other thing you want to use is Prosthetic makeup, right? We talked about Prosthetic to stick the thing on your face, using Cabo Patch to even out the lines, right? If you're not going to be too worried about evening out the lines, then what you can do is use fur on top of it, like I'm doing. That will hide your imperfections. If you're having a trouble with the eyes or the prosthetic not sticking to your face, you can use props such as glasses or anything else to hide imperfections. Also, the more you can cover up on your body, the less work you have to do. So me, I'm doing a skin tight spacesuit with armor. That means I don't have to do very much work on the rest of the body, right? You don't have to worry about the hands or the feet. And the more creative you can do, the best you can. And make sure you add detail everywhere, including your costume. If you're just going to do the really good face and you have a kind of a meh costume, it ruins the illusion. So make sure you do that, okay? And then once you apply the prosthetic, you go over it with spirit gum. You can use kids brand crazy glue to get the really good spots. Then you can add whatever makeup you want. We talked about using black, gray, or white makeup is probably the best ways to start. Single colors because it's easier to tackle. Even if you want to do complicated colors, do that later. Simpler is best to pull off an illusion. Using wigs instead of your own hair to cover up your ears, or using different props to hide your ears, whatever that may be. will help you sell the illusion that you turn into the creature as well. Using bits of fur like I've been doing and just patching it along, that's the kind of flocking I do. Real flocking comes from a machine that's like $1,200 and it's a long process, but it looks hyper real as well. It just depends on what the look you're going for and whether you're doing it professionally or a hobby. And then we also talked about, hey, if people are gonna hire you to do it, make sure you're gonna do the best job and you follow directions and you give them the customer exactly what they want. Because sometimes if you screw up, no one may want to hire you again, right? So the idea is when you do these illusions, you pay attention to detail, you take your time, and you have fun with it. And when you get this skill really good, you can become anything you want to be at any time. So, and usually a lot of looks don't cost a lot of money. This Spaceland look, if I count the costume and the space armor and everything I made, we're looking at about $600. But if we're talking just the prosthetic itself, plus paint, we're talking only about $130 to $150. If I'm including paint and like say you already have your brushes and everything as well. The cheapest you can do a prosthetic for is probably $50 or $60. Practice as you will, right? And then that's all I can tell you to do is just practice and you'll get better. So thank you so much for having me, everyone, for bearing with me as I mumble as I go through this. It was a pleasure. And I hope that I'll see you someday at a convention, right? At a fur convention or maybe at a shifter con when as it gets bigger, right? Thank you. Have a good night, everybody. Give us a big roar. I could probably purr. I don't even know how to roar. Yeah, I can't roar. I just sound like I'm gargling salt. Happy Halloween, everybody. Just roar. Is that good? Happy Halloween, everybody. Have fun, be safe, and enjoy the rest of the con.